Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here. It's a big honor, really, to be here. And thank you for this big audience to stay in front of us, to listen to our project, to our lives, to our stories. I'm Francesco Librizzi. I am the head of a small office in Italy called FRANCESCO LIBRIZZI Studio. It's an office of 4 to 6 persons. We mainly deal with interior restoration, renovations, exhibition design, and architecture. The studio is set in Milano, but actually I'm from Sicily. I'm from this Greek, Phoenician, Roman, Norman, Spanish, Italian island in the middle of Mediterranean. I see all this genealogy of Sicily because the project I'm going to show you is set actually in Sicily, in a town called Cefalù, which is one of the most famous touristic spots on the Tyrrhenian coast of Sicily. What we see there is a picture from 13th century, but actually Cefalù starts its origin from a Phoenician colony, so something which was related to these territories. In this picture that you see is the city as it appears between 13th and 14th century. I chose this picture because at that time already was built the cathedral, as you see, which was built by the Roman king Roger II. The village below the monumental temple, the cathedral, is all closed by a defensive wall. And you can see the presence of this rock, which is very peculiar. So in this picture, I'm mainly tracing the archetype of this place. I'm talking about archetypes because you have a significant, a meaningful trace on the landscape, which is the rock. Then you have a monumental architecture, which is this cathedral being like the main reference point for all the community. And then you have the community of these fishermen, which choose to settle along the coast where there was a gulf, where the water was calm enough to place in a safe position the boats. But mainly, if this is the archetype, the house of the landscape, the house of God, the house of citizens, what is the image that nowadays people have of this town? What is the shared image that in contemporary time is in the eyes of people when think of Cefalù? So there's a way of knowing it very easily. If you Google Cefalù, you see that mainly the postcard, the main shared image of this location nowadays, it's mainly coincident with the archetype of its image that I've shown you before. So somehow there is a strange coincidence between what is the archetype, the fundamentals, the basic image behind the image of a place, and what is its stereotype, which is the shared image. What is housed, what finds room in the collective memory of the present stereotype. So as you see, it's a very beautiful place. The Mediterranean Sea along this coast has a tremendous beauty. And mainly, this was a place where I was going when I was a child. A touristic place is a place where people from other cities go to visit, go there to celebrate, that they understand that image. Touristic place has this fortune of having the chance of being told with an image, and people which go there wants to belong to it. This selfie mania is you with something you recognize behind you, and in the picture you get along together. You belong to this. So we had the chance of making a project into this frame. This target is pointing at a private house, which is one of the many hundreds of possible constellation of the fishermen houses that now, of course, are very luxurious, expensive houses in a touristic place. As you can imagine, the result of hundreds of years of change of property and changing of technology and changing of structures of the family brought to clusters. Those houses which had a basement, shop in the basement, then we had a small ladder bringing it to the rooftop. Now are clusters. You can have room belonging to the same property, getting right, top, side, and so they became very complex architectural organism. But by the way, when having the chance of making an architectural intervention within this image, I realized that we had the chance of being part, like in a selfie, of this stereotype. getting back to Google, acting on the spot, we would have been on all the postcards of the future of Cefalù, and mainly, and not only acting on the future, but also acting on the past, because there was a coincidence which is not possible to separate between this archetype and the stereotype of the city. So this is a big metaphor of what the architectural intervention within the historical built environment means. With an architecture of today, you actually draw a line that can cross time for several centuries. On one side is responsibility, on one side is the sense itself of history. So, unfortunately, you see a very bad drawing. I'm sorry. By the way, this is a cross-section of Cefalù. Go back, please, one image. It didn't change. This is the cross-section of Cefalù. There are disciplines which talk about a space that are set on a certain kind of tools. Drawing is one of the tools of architecture, and certain disciplines like urban planning needs plans to show where things are displayed. Plans and maps talks about position, relative position between things. But other disciplines needs to cut to show how things work together. Anatomy works physically cutting, but also in the system representation. If you think to some anatomical drawing, in the section you see how the organs and the function work each other. And in geology, for example, if you make a geological cut, you see the overlapping of time. Because the main law in architecture, whatever is our opinion, is gravity, and gravity is just an overlapping of time. So what you see there inside is the first drawing, which shows the main part of intervention in the house. In these clusters of rooms, we find a main trajectory through the space, which was crossing in the vertical section of the space and giving whole meaning to this house, which has many rooms on the doors, on the roadside, but the main goal of all this architecture is to reach the amazing view, participating to the landscape, being part of the panorama. So what you see here was the only point where it was possible to go across 3 levels of 10 rooms and reach the landscape. Of course, this could have been possible just operating certain cuts throughout the rooms and opening a central space, which was like a small tower getting to the terrace. Before getting to the features of the project itself, I'll try to be quite quick. The landscape, the architecture is part of the project, but of course, people which are within architecture can deeply influence the course and the developing of the project. The person you see there in a double image overlapped is the owner of the house. He is a journalist for the famous Italian newspaper Repubblica, and its colored imaginary deeply was part of the project. This was the first project where I started working with colors. I never worked with colors before. I have not a pictorial talent. I mainly let things work in the space by itself, materials, disposition, position, and its imaginary refer to the wide imaginary around tiling, ceramics, colors in Sicily, gave me the chance to challenge me and the client towards a new trajectory within the space. So I show you briefly what the structure of the stair is, because now I want to talk about space, because any one of us who has seen different professions these days focus his own practice on a certain approach to what is the profession. At a certain point of my career, I realized that space was what I could deal with. And space, mainly, I would say that doesn't exist. But you can build it. But you need to find how space appears. Like a picture on a Polaroid, that when it's out of the machine, it's white, but then at a certain point it starts appearing from the background. So I started understanding that working on the edge of space, working on its main frame, not on the mass of volume, I find a way the space was appearing from nothing and becoming very meaningful within the space it was built in. This project came in our studio in a very peculiar moment. Here you see people in the studio working and preparing models for a small exhibition, and we do big models. These are 1:5 scale. Interior architecture gives you the chance on a small part to make big models. And what you see here was the first prototype of a series of 3 staircases that we had the chance of building in a row along 3 years. This was the first one in which this research of a presence within the space was giving the meaning to the whole architecture. We didn't touch anything of the whole space, but we just created a cut and this object which was appearing and giving with its occupation a different meaning to the rest of the space. As you see, the original tiling, all the rest wasn't touched. In a strict row of sequence, still with the same idea in mind, we had an evolution. Even the first project, we want to work on structure as it was the whole. So there was no distinction between the rise and the step and the handrail, and the structure just in a complex framework give us the chance to make a 14 millimeters thin structure, something which appears in a picture like a pen drawing on it, something that really manifests as a ghost within the space. In the second chance, we work out this idea of tectonics collaborating with the walls. So the first set of steps is attached to the ground, the second one is holding itself between 2 walls, and the third one is hanging from top. The last project was much complex. This interaction, this inner anatomy, this logic of tectonics on the staircase brought us to different steps. Because of the peculiar situation, actually, the staircase is decomposed because this project is in Sicily, my studio is in Milano, and during the realization, the workers made errors with the levels of the ceilings, mainly with the last one. So I had no chance of making a regular staircase with the same pace. We thought for days about it. It was a tragedy inside the studio. All the drawings we had were torn away. But at certain points I realized that this idea of breaking the pace of the ascending would have been a path. These are 10 meters. You go up 3 stories before reaching the end. So it's not one line. So this created the chance for an inner landscape. At any time the steps change direction, they are a separate block in terms of structure, material, direction, pace. And at any time you turn yourself while ascending, you have a point of view on the space below. And this opened the gate to rethinking the flooring. Once getting to the top, you had this point of observation, like a bird's view towards the interior, which is something that really seldom happens within interior space. You never have like in cities with tower, a point where you can get aware of the territory that you're living in. We started working on a strategy on the flooring system. As you see, the stair itself found itself with a last iron tile amongst the other patterns, and we started taking advantage of the secular tradition of handworking in Sicily. Working within certain territories gives you great opportunities. First of all, there are districts which still are old-fashioned, so they have still the craftsmen able to work with material which almost disappear, and to do this in a cheap manner. So we found this concrete tile producer which had these old-fashioned patterns, and we started working out over this, and working out with part of the material which was in the house and part which was designed on purpose. But the main goal was to act on the social pattern of the house, on the structure of the family, destroying the normal subdivision of spaces through the floor itself. A floor pattern acts like a carpet. You have a field, it's called like this, which is framed in the middle, and then you have a belt all around, which deals and try to match all the irregularity of the walls. By destroying this and creating a continuous metamorphosis of the patterns throughout the rooms, we create a certain of open space within a house which is built with solid walls, a house which is divided with rooms in which the intervention and the structure of the space can be solid. But this is the final solution that you see. So the presence of this continuous field and the relevance of the inner landscape were the main goal reached through the structure. And finally, of course, approaching to the main thing, which was, again, being part of the postcard. Thank you.